Unless you've been rolling a critical fail on your history checks for your entire life, you've heard of Dungeons and Dragons. Whether it's via long-running YouTube shows like Critical Role, That's So Bad It's Bad Jeremy Irons movie, or those mop-haired twerps from Stranger Things, D&D squats large in the tabletop RPG landscape like a dragon slumbering over its precious gold. And I am duty-bound to say that D&D is very good, or else Luke and Laurie will bring their D&D party around to my house and, I don't know, cast imaginary fireballs at me, the dorks. I'm kidding, of course. D&D is wonderful, an engine fueled by imagination, social interaction, and consequences, a shining pillar of how compelling, genuinely emotional, and therapeutic gaming can be. The only criticism I throw at it is that from the outside, it might appear like the only game in town. Not so. If you're looking for an alternative to D&D's fantasy setting, its not inconsiderable amount of rules complexity, or simply a palate cleanser after washing goblin blood from your boots for the 6th time this month, have a look at these and make a wallet saving throw with disadvantage. I'm Adam from No Rolls Bard, and here are our top 10 RPGs you should play instead of Dungeons and Dragons. And while you're here, why not subscribe to No Rolls Bard? If you've seen our content and haven't subscribed, first of all, thank you for seeing our content, but also, if you do, just click that button for free. It does help us out a lot, so why not go and do it? Expelliarmus? Is that D&D? F it. Number 10, 10 Candles. Could not do it at number 10, could I, lads? Though just based on personal preference, I'd actually rank this much higher. It is, after all, the only RPG I've ever run for other players, so it's got a special place in my heart. So what is 10 Candles? It's a survival horror RPG set in a dark world where the sun no longer shines and something is lurking in the shadows. It's a one-shot system, which means it creates stories designed to be finished in a single sitting, so right there's a leg up on calendar-consuming D&D campaigns. It's also wonderfully simple. All players sit around a circle of 10 candles. Hey, that's the name of the game. At the beginning, all these candles are lit and are the only light in the room. When players want to do something that requires skill or luck, they roll a number of d6s equal to the number of currently lit candles. A d6 is a die with 6 sides, which most people know as default dice. If even one of these dice is a 6, you succeed and get to tell the story of how you succeeded. However, if you fail your roll, if you get no 6s, a candle is extinguished, you lose a die, and the DM tells you how you fail. So as the game goes along, it gets harder and harder, and you fail more and more often as the shadows creep further and further in, the light of hope literally fading until the last candle is blown out. You're left in total darkness, and everyone is dead. Horror gaming at its most atmospheric. Number 9, Fiasco. Anyone who's ever played D&D might think that every RPG requires a DM or a dungeon master. Not so, and Fiasco's a prime example of that. Another one-shot system like 10 Candles. Fiasco markets itself as a Coen Brothers crime movie that you build yourself. A collection of desperate crims and sleazy opportunists conjuring a scheme that will inevitably collapse into betrayal, bungling, and death. There are loads of scenarios to play, one on a doomed spaceship, the Salem witch trials, at the zoo, each setting coming with a host of different relationships, MacGuffins, and plot twists. Players sit in a circle, roll dice to define their relationships with their two neighbours. Maybe my connection to the person on my right is we're estranged siblings who want to get even with the city, but my connection to the person on my left is that we're a pair of animal smugglers trying to pay off our debt to the zoo. Once everyone has a pair of relationships, the game plays out as a series of improvised scenes, plans and schemes mounting on top of each other until they fall apart. It's super simple, super fast paced with almost no rules admin after the setup, and often drop dead hilarious. Number 8, Call of Cthulhu. Back to horror games we go, and one of the most recognizable brands in all of spooky dudes with outdated attitudes, the Cthulhu mythos, where the big gods play. What the f*** is that? There's loads of different Call of Cthulhu campaigns available, from ones like Masks of Nyarlathotep that can run for years, or teeny two-handers that can be breezed through in a single session. It's similar in DNA to D&D, exploring a game world, most of the time investigating some spooky business. You have lots of different skills, and when you do something, the DM tells you to roll dice based on one of these skills, and then they'll narrate the consequences. But it's got one real juicy mechanic: sanity. Ah yes, it's always sanity. People just go mental for sanity mechanics in Lovecraft games. Whenever you encounter something in a Call of Cthulhu game that's spooky, which by the way is all of the time, you can lose sanity. If you lose too much in a single game day, your character can go temporarily insane. The game gives you a randomly generated compulsion, which then completely changes how you're role-playing. Uh-oh, looks like you've seen too many Spoops Mackenzies and now you want to start some fires. How's this going to affect the investigation? bad, I-Rex. Number 7, Alice is Missing. Absolutely fascinating game this. The elevator pitch is an RPG about finding a missing girl told entirely in silence, entirely via WhatsApp. Life is Strange meets Twin Peaks locked inside your phone. Like Fiasco, there's no DM, rather a facilitator who runs the setup but then plays alongside you. So you learn which version of Alice you're looking for. There's a bunch of different Alices in the box. Take one of 5 available characters, come up with a unique secret your character has, a unique drive. Maybe you're the peacekeeper of the group, for example, and finally leave the room to record a voicemail that your character has left on Alice's phone. Then 90 minutes starts using an official timer video the designers have put on YouTube with a full and brilliant soundtrack, and all players stop talking, taking to their phones to uncover the mystery together in a group chat. Every 10 minutes, clue cards will be revealed that draw the story closer and closer to its conclusion, and sometimes it ends badly. It can be pretty affecting stuff, and the game provides a lot of support for its players, letting them outline content they'd rather not roleplay around before the game even starts, as well as providing an X card to stop the game if it's getting too real, because it can be a deeply moving game, locked away from each other despite being in the same room, trapped in your phones with only your suspicions, your fears, and the timer ticking down and down until you eventually find Alice one way or another. And then, right at the end, you play the voicemail you recorded for her at the start of the game. What a genius concept. Number 6, Fate. At their simplest, RPGs are games about telling a story. The Fate series of games are, more than any other RPGs, games about telling a movie, and it does it by being completely open-ended. Most RPGs come armed with a setting for characters to explore: fantasy, spookum, space. Fate gives you none of that. Players build a setting and characters from scratch with their DM with the help of aspects. Each setting and character are defined by aspects or traits, and they can be anything you want. There's a high concept, which is a broad descriptor of your character, like the last survivor of a once great house. They must have a trouble aspect, which is something that could complicate their story, like framed for murder and on the run. And then 3 other aspects, which can be anything: things they're good at, a rivalry with another character, a secret, as long as, and this is the rulebook talking, you don't make them boring. That's Fate's whole deal. Big action, weird characters. Right now, let's go. Want to do something? Say what is, then roll 4 dice with pluses and minuses on them and add them together with something else, which will tell you if you've failed, succeeded with a cost, had a regular success, or best of all, succeeded with style, which allows for some badass narration of how cool your character looks right now, as is even more likely when you do something related to one of your aspects. It's such a focused system, makes you constantly put your character at the forefront of the story, and when everyone's pinging off each other, it can make for something truly cinematic. Number 5, No Thank You Evil. If all this talk of stats, conflict, and Cthulhu has led you to think that most RPGs are aimed solely at adults, then, well, yes, you're right, to be honest, but there are some wonderful RPGs out there designed for kids to play with their families. Leading the pack is No Thank You Evil, a game explicitly designed for kids. The setup is ridiculously easy. You define your character by saying, blank is a blank who blanks. Maybe Pat is a postman who can fly. Wheels Calhoun is a car who is also a sheriff. Jeff Bezos is a businessman who should stay in space. Stuff like that. Kids are encouraged to draw their character. They can also come up with a companion, and they'll start the game with stats in the following skills: tough, fast, smart, and best of all, awesome. They start with a certain amount of tokens in each, which they can spend to do fun stuff in the game. The game is run by a guide, aka the DM, and appropriately, No Thank You Evil is a fantastically simple system for people running games for the first time. The game comes with a map of the land of Storia, divided into 4 different broadly thematic lands, and those lands are based on the first choice players make, which is, how do you leave your house? Want some traditional fantasy? Head into the closet and visit Dragonsnot Falls, or head under the bed to check out Boo Lagoon and other spooky places, behind the bookshelf for more storybook locales, or out the window for a more action movie type adventure. It's utterly charming. Number 4, Blades in the Dark. Blades in the Dark rules. To simplify it almost too much, it's Ocean's 11 meets Dishonored. Sign me the up. The world of the game is a criminal city called Duskval, a wretched hive of scum and villainy that's also sheltering behind a perimeter shield of lightning powered by demon blood because the sun broke and now the dark world is full of ghosts. I have made none of that up. Sign me up more. Players roleplay as a member of a crew, taking down scores to build their standing in the city. Characters like Lurks, the stealth bastards, Slides, the smooth talking bastards, or Whispers, the bastards who talk to ghosts because there are loads of ghosts. And if all that isn't cool enough, the game also has a flashback system that makes the scores work. You know that bit in a heist movie where something goes wrong, but it turns out to be all part of the plan all along? Blades in the Dark has that. If you run into trouble, your character can trigger a flashback where you outline something that you did in the past, which now helps you out of the pickle you find yourself in. Oh no, this hulking bodyguard just chucked me off the roof. Thank God I bribed that stained mattress peddler to leave a bunch of stained mattresses on the street. All part of the stinky plan. Number 3, worldwide wrestling. I mean, we've got to mention it, right? For those of you who are new to the channel, first of all, hello, aren't you lovely? Second, this channel is partly founded by wrestling fans. We have another channel called Parts Fun Known, and on that channel, there's a series called CBW, where we play a version of this RPG, Worldwide Wrestling. It's wonderful. It uses a game engine called Powered by the Apocalypse, which a lot of other games have used to dictate how stuff happens and how characters are connected. Games like Monster of the Week, which is like X-Files meets Buffy, Monster Hearts, which is all about horny teenage monsters, and of course, Worldwide Wrestling, all about a wrestling promotion and the lives of the wrestlers within. Create a wrestler from various types: jobber, monster, hardcore, high flyer, cowabunga. Then whenever you want to do something, hit a move, cut a promo, play to the crowd, you roll 2 6-sided dice and then add or take away points based on your skills. A final result of 10 or more means you do the thing. 7 to 9 means you partially do it, but there's a consequence. 6 or less, and you fail. You build feuds with other players. Other people around the table can commentate on your matches. You can build momentum by doing cool stuff, which gives you chips you can cash in to improve your dice. It's a robust system made with obvious love for the wrestling biz. It's also profoundly and wonderfully stupid, just like wrestling, and also the second silliest game on this list. But Adam, what's the silliest? Why, that would be number 2, Honey Heist. To be honest, this entry is really more about an RPG designer called Grant Howard. He's designed a whole bunch of super simple RPGs with his gimmick being that the rules for each one take up only one side of A4. He does the Lord's work. He's made games like Sexy Battle Wizards, in which you are sexy battle wizards, Jason Statham's Big Vacation, which is exactly what it sounds like, but best of all, Honey Heist. You are a bunch of bears, you are planning a heist. Can I make it any more obvious? Every player chooses a type of criminal they are: hacker, driver, muscle, but also what type of bear. Polar bears are good at swimming, black bears are good at climbing, honey badgers excel at, checks notes, carnage.
Honey badger don't give a shit. It just takes what it wants.
The DM sets up the heist by rolling for what you're stealing, the opposition you're up against, and what the second act twist will be, and then off you go, bears. Each bear has 2 stats: criminal, because they're criminals, and bear, because they're bears. When you want to do a bear-related thing, roll 1 6-sided die on your bear stat. For all other things, roll on criminal. At the start of the game, each player is equal parts criminal and bear. However, if things go bad, you can lose a point in one stat and gain it in the other. If you ever go full criminal, you betray your own team. If you ever go full bear, you go completely feral and probably berserk, because you're a bear. RPGs don't have to come with thick bibles of lore, with hundreds of qualifications on which dice to roll when. Sometimes it's as simple as being bears and stealing a thing. Grant Howard is brilliant. And number 1, Golden Sky Stories. And now to end with something lovely. Golden Sky Stories is a Japanese RPG set in a small Japanese town in which players play henge, magical animals that can take human form, and literally the entire game is about using your animal powers to help the villagers overcome emotional problems. Think films like My Neighbor Totoro. Delightful. After some of the stuff we talked about, this might seem impossibly tame, and hey, play the type of game you want to play, but give it a chance, and Golden Sky wins you over entirely with its charms. See, there's a whole subset of Japanese manga and anime called Iashike, which translates as healing, which are just about people living their lives without too much bad stuff happening, with the intended effect on the audience being a simple, soothing experience. There's an Iashike show called After School Dice Club, and it's about people playing board games, and it's brilliant. And Golden Sky Stories is all about this calm. You don't even roll dice in the game. Instead, you spend wonder points to use animal powers. These powers can be influencing other people's dreams like a cuddly insect, perception, you can calm people down, fly, you can spend feelings points to complete skill checks, you can boost the number of these points you get each turn by increasing your friendship with each other or by awarding each other dream points for doing things that other players really liked. Yes, it's twee. Yes, of course it is, but not everything has to be boom booms and conflict. For the right group, it might just be the most heartwarming game you've ever played. And that's our list. Do you have an RPG that you really love? Tell us about it in the comments. Let's get a huge list of wonderful tabletop RPGs going. And hey, if you like this video, share it around and subscribe to No Rolls Barred for more great board game content. Get on board.